What is up, everyone? Barricade here, and I'm bringing you guys a brand new video. I know it's been a while now. I have not been making content for quite a bit now. Ever since really with 2020, my life's just been kind of hectic. Things have changed so much, and I just kind of stepped away from making content. And honestly, I miss it. I really do, and I would like to get back into it. I don't know if this is gonna be me making content consistently going forward here, but I thought I'd at least just make a video because there's something that has been in my mind lately when it comes to Gears of War. If you guys have noticed, with Gears 5, the series has kind of became a little stagnant there. No new content for Gears 5. Kind of up in the air what the story will be like for Gears 6 with no trailers, nothing so far. And also the big question of what's going to happen after Gears 6. If they're going to make more games, if that's just going to be the end of the series, or what type of direction the series will go in after, Gears 6, probably closing out the whole story with Kate and, the Swarm and all that. So today what I wanted to talk about is actually what I would like to do for the series. Let's just say in some crazy magical world, I had the ability to write and essentially direct the entire storyline for the future games. That'd be amazing. One thing I've always wanted to do with the series that I think would be amazing, and I've talked about it before in the past, but I thought I would kind of flesh out that idea a little more and kind of talk about it in more detail, is the idea of doing a prequel trilogy. So essentially what I mean is essentially make games that start with E-Day, so like after Gear 6 and that whole story is concluded. I feel like that should just be the end of it there. I can't really see it going any more after that. Maybe they could, I don't know, but I feel like after Gear 6 with the ending of, Kate and all that, they should go backwards and essentially make a prequel trilogy, fleshing out the story from E-Day all the way up until the beginning of the first game. There's a lot of content that could be made and a lot of story that could also be created during this time frame in the story. There's a lot of things we found out in Gears 5 about Mira's past, about how Reyna was born, the whole situation, and how it, essentially Mira turned evil and wanted to kill everybody and took care of the Locusts. I made a lot of videos explaining that, so feel free to check those out in more detail. I can always put a link in the description for that. But essentially, I feel like all that could be expanded on, and also essentially even the relationship between Marcus and Dom, and also even Cole and Barrett eventually. The only thing that I feel like would be a little hard to do actually regarding Cole and Barrett is the fact that Marcus and Dom didn't really meet them until Gears 1. As if you play the beginning of Gears 1, that's pretty much the first time they really met them. Marcus knew of Baird because if you remember when they first meet, he says, "You're Baird," and then he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, who are you?" or something. Baird tells him, and then they obviously know who Cole is because he's a very famous athlete. So one thing I was thinking that would be really cool actually is there's a lot of story that was shown in the novels between Cole and Baird that was never really talked about or shown in the games. And I feel like that would be great for the games actually. I feel like they could do parallel stories where they can do parts of Marcus and Dom and then parts with Cole and Baird. That way we can still have them all in one game in one, part of the prequel trilogies, but essentially, they wouldn't really interact with one another, seeing as they didn't actually meet until Gears 1. So what I really want to do with today's video is actually kind of give a little kind of structure for the first game of the trilogy, how I would make the story about that. And essentially I can make more videos talking about the second and the third game, what I would want those stories to be about. So with the start of the very first game, I've always wanted Gears to start on E-Day. We talk about E-Day so much, we've seen little things about it, but we never really actually experienced a game on E-Day, like a whole entire game. I feel like the very first game could really just be about Emergence Day. There are so much things they can do with that part of the story and just essentially show all the characters' first reactions to the Locust Horde. And then the other thing as well, besides the reactions, is I would really love the series to go back to that dark and grittiness that the original trilogy had, especially the first game. We don't really have that type of feeling with the new trilogy with Gears 4 and Gears 5. And, I would really like to bring that back, the feeling of, complete destruction, just people dying, craziness, these monsters coming out of nowhere, the sheer panic, all of that. We need to have that feeling again because that's what made Gears of War amazing to me because it always had that, weird, action cool parts, but then it also had like an underlining of horror as well, because the locusts themselves are horrifying. There's so many times I've found out more facts about them while reading the comics or reading novels or just seeing parts in the game, and they are outright vicious. These are monsters that don't spare anybody, regardless of who they are, how old they are. They're just straight up monsters, and it would be really cool to see that part, and it would even kind of give that horror feeling back, with seeing this for the first time on Emergence Day. And I feel like the way the game could work is either we can do it as either episodic things where we play it a whole storyline, like a mini storyline from the perspective of Marcus and Dom, and then other parts with Cole and other parts with Baird, or we could just have it go back and forth. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, so I'm not really going to focus on the technical aspect of it. But essentially what I would love to see in the very first game with Emergence Day is we can start with Marcus and Dom, and essentially, as it was depicted in the story, not that long before Emergence Day, the Pendulum Wars, were over, and everyone was happy. And essentially, Dom just got a new house with Maria, and they were going to spend the day together. If you guys remember the scene in Gears 2, it was shown where she states that the kids were with her parents, essentially, and that they had the whole day to themselves. But unfortunately, that day was E-Day, and the locusts appeared, killed their family, killed his kids, everything. It was very bad. And I feel like this would be an awesome thing to depict in the storyline, because it would be very sad. Well, first off, it would be nice to have Dom back in the storyline again. I really miss having Dom as a supporting character in the series, seeing as he's not in, obviously 4 or 5 since he died in part 3. That's another thing that could, be great about this series, is that if they do a prequel trilogy, Dom could be a part of it again. But anyways, so the main thing I just want to say is, like I said, Emergence Day, they kill his family, everything. We could make a part where maybe Dom and Maria are just, having a good day together. They're just spending time together. And out of nowhere, this news bulletin just appears on the TV. And it starts talking about how out of nowhere these monsters appeared. And everybody's being attacked. And a lot of people are dying. And as soon as Dom sees this, he freaks out, tells Maria, stay safe, stay home. I'm going to go ahead and meet up with Marcus. We're going to go get the kids, basically. It cuts to a scene of seeing Dom already fully armored and contacting Marcus through a radio. And Marcus immediately tells him, I'm going to meet up with you here. We're going to go, essentially. And they go together, and as they're going together in a vehicle, you can hear on the radio just people being attacked. You can hear a news bulletin over the radio just talking about what is going on. It's just hectic. It's chaos. You can hear gunfire. You can see the locusts appearing nearby as they're driving. And we can hear their initial reactions, hearing Marcus and Dom saying things like, what the hell are these things? And they have to get out of the car, and they have to take cover, and you have to start fighting them. And this is the very first time that Marcus and Dom are fighting the locusts, wondering what the heck these things are. And, we can hear the locusts, saying human and stuff like that. Just all the things that we always hear the locusts saying when they see them. And just hearing just all the cool music and just all that coming at you right away, and obviously this game would be co-op, so you could be playing, with your best friend or your brother or whoever, and you're just experiencing all this together. All of it's coming at you at once. Just 1 second, everything is peaceful with Dom and Maria, and the next it's just war and blood and violence and just all this hecticness. And essentially Marcus and Dom fight their way through a part of the city to get to Maria's family's home, to her mother's house. But unfortunately, when he gets there, he sees the locusts already there. The house already collapsed because it got hit by a boom shot. Dom rushes in with Marcus right behind him. He sees her parents under rubble, her father dead, her mother still alive. And he calls her by her name, which would be cool because we never got to hear what her parents' name were called. They're always just referenced as Mr. and Mrs. Flores. So it would be cool to see, him actually mention them by name so we could finally get their official names. But anyways, the mother's still barely alive, and she tells him, the kids, they ran, please save them. And then her mother dies right in Dom's hands. and Dom runs to the back of the house and down the street, and essentially just going crazy looking for them. And eventually he finds them, and he sees that the locusts are right there. But unfortunately, by the time he fights the locusts off, he sees that they are dead. They have been killed, shot to death by the locusts. This makes Dom infuriated. He is just as angry, just as furious as we saw him in Gears of War 2 after he saw Maria die, after he had to, basically mercy kill her. So he's that type of angry again. He's pissed. And him and Marcus just essentially just go on a killing spree, screaming, "You killed my children!" And just this horrible, crazy, like, anger and sadness. We can get a really, really sad scene, seeing his children killed. Something that we never actually got to see in previous games. That could easily be like one of the saddest scenes in video game history, just seeing his reaction to his children being killed. And then after all this crazy, fight, this crazy fight scene that we get to see with Marcus and Dom just fighting a bunch of enemies, after it kind of dies down for a little bit, he meets up with Maria, he makes sure she's safe, and we get a sad scene of him telling her that her parents are killed, the children have been killed, and it's just this horrible, sad scene between him and Maria. And, just from there, we can just go, just more on that maybe the COG has been sent out to fight the locusts to protect and evacuate as much people. So Marcus and Dom are going through essentially an evacuation mission to protect everybody that they can. And they're just fighting all the, locusts. And the thing that would be cool is that throughout the story, we saw that, there is locusts, enemies that were later shown to not be in the original trilogy. We got characters shown and like Gears Tactics, enemies shown, and like Gears Judgment. So we could do the same thing again with a new type of locust that essentially died out before Gears 1, but would be a primary enemy and recurrent enemy throughout this trilogy. So we can find, maybe a different version of the drones or different versions of wretches or anything like that, really. And then I feel like it could go into like a subplot here where Dom is actually trying to protect the family that he finds. He finds another couple that have children, and it hits him hard knowing, that he is essentially one of the few people that can protect them, and he just lost his own children, several hours ago. So it really kind of, portrays onto himself that he really has to protect them, and he just goes out of his way to do so. And luckily he succeeds, and he's happy that he does so. But that's just like a mini subplot in that as well. And then essentially overall just have a crazy very first day of Emergence Day with Marcus and Dom, then fighting alongside other soldiers, seeing characters like Hoffman and Anya, and maybe even have a little quick scene of Anya giving Dom her condolences about what happened after she finds out, and just other things like that. We can introduce new characters, new soldiers that we never got to see, in the original trilogy, cool characters that unfortunately die later on in dramatic ways, and just so much things they can really do with Emergence Day. And essentially have them even fight. One thing I thought of, I don't know if this would be like something you guys would like, or if you think it would be kind of over the top, but it would be kind of interesting to see maybe even Marcus and Dom run into Rom for the first time. I know that we kind of got that with Gears 1, with him killing Min, but from what I can tell, maybe someone could correct me, I don't believe that was like the very first time they ever heard of Rom. Rom, it was shown in the comics, essentially the Rise of Rom comics, was that he was there on Emergence Day. He was one of the very first, he was essentially the leader of the Locusts coming out to fight them on the Queen's behalf, essentially. So he was definitely there, on Emergence Day. So maybe have them run into Rom, maybe have like an interesting scene where the Krill is first introduced, and then they fight Rom, but they can't kill him because he's too strong at that moment. They're not too used to fighting someone so crazily powerful, so they essentially just have to run away. So Rom, they obviously can't kill Rom because he dies in the first game, but maybe at least just have a cool fight scene with him. We can see characters like Min as well make their return. Just so many different things that we could do just with that part of Marcus and Dom, and essentially have it to where they go through this whole crazy adventure where they evacuate everyone within the very first day and try to save as many people as possible, and then essentially have that part of the story end with seeing like a newscast talk about how within the first day of Emergence Day, that 25% of the human population has been killed, because that's actually a fact in the novels, and stated later on that 25% of the human population died in the initial attack by the locust horde, and just kind of have this sad, kind of defeated feeling, like, this is barely starting. This is, the beginning of the human locust war, and just kind of have it end there, with it showing, what we're going to get with the next game afterwards. Maybe show a scene with Mira and talk about her past a little bit, and essentially talk about other characters as well. We could do a thing where maybe either have it go back and forth between the two, like I said, or maybe just have it as its own separate storyline that you can play, and essentially do the same thing for Baird and Cole, and essentially show their initial reactions to the locust horde, show a little bit of their backstory, and essentially have them be like their own little co-op campaign as well between the two. For Cole, for you guys, if you guys don't know, if you didn't read the novel, essentially his initial reaction to the locust was interesting, because essentially what happened is he was at this time he was already a big thrashball star, and he was driving essentially, I believe, home through like a highway area. Well, he wasn't driving, it was actually, he had a driver. He's rich, so someone's driving for him. It was, I believe the man's name was Joseph, if I recall correctly, and he was really cool with him. It was just like his driver and everything. And while they're driving home, they see that the traffic has gone really bad. There's a lot of traffic jams, and essentially that's when he first hears about it. He first hears about the locust horde. I believe they heard it on the radio, and at that point he realized that they were not going to go anywhere in the car. The traffic was just way too jammed. So Cole essentially tells Joseph to go ahead and leave, go be with your family, find out what happened to them, and I'll take care of myself, which is really cool. So essentially Joseph takes off, and Cole gets out the car and starts walking. And throughout this whole first, reaction to the locust, he's very worried about his parents. And at one point he walks by a crowd of people that are all watching TVs that are on, coming through like a window from like maybe an electronics store or something like that. And essentially the TVs are just depicting the news. It's just showing the locusts, all these crazy monsters killing people. And essentially, the one part that was interesting was that, he was pretty much like in Hanover, in his hometown and all that. And people knew him. So like anytime they saw Cole, they're like, oh my God, the Cole train. But while he was with this whole crowd of people, none of them reacted. They didn't even bother looking at him, because they were all fixated at seeing what was going on with the world at that point. And essentially, Cole got very scared, and he was wondering what happened to his parents. And then later it's said that unfortunately they died in the initial attack, both his parents. And then when we go to, him after that, it shows that he played another thrashball game and stuff like that, but he felt like it was pointless. So what he wanted to do was essentially enlist in the army and fight the locusts to help stop them. So after one of his games, he essentially told everybody, he told the whole crowd, everybody, saying that I am quitting thrashball. I am becoming a soldier in the COG army, and I'm going to fight these monsters, essentially. And he starts motivating people, telling everybody, you're going to help me, you're going to help the code train take on these monsters and stuff like that. So the thing that was crazy, one little fact about that too, is that after he gave a big speech about it and how he was joining the COG, it helped boost morale like crazy, and a lot of people enlisted in the army because of him, because they felt motivated and they wanted to follow his his lead, essentially. So we can get a scene of that, and then the scene of him meeting Baird. Essentially what happened there was their initial meeting was actually Baird being jumped by people that didn't like him. I believe they were actually like sticking his head in the toilet and beating him up and stuff while they were getting enlisted into the army. And then essentially that's how they meet, and then they essentially end up on a squad together. And that whole initial first fight with the Locust was interesting because, everyone is scared of all these monsters, but then you see Cole rushing in like a madman, him, running in, not scared, fighting all these monsters. and that gave his squad morale. So they all rush in and fight the Locust alongside him. So he's just a huge example of someone that can give a big boost to morale and make everyone feel invincible. You know, that's something that we can actually show. You know, an initial thing, maybe have a thing where whoever's playing as Cole is the only person that can attack that first because everyone else is scared. But it's after you attack the first enemy, it plays like a little cutscene, shows them all badass, all, you know, fearless, and then all the other soldiers rush in, and then it just kind of goes from there, and just kind of just show their relationship between Barrett and Cole, and kind of just expand on it, show their first fights with the Locust, reaction to the first enemies, you know, maybe fight like a somewhat big baddie, you know, maybe not Rom, but like some other type of high level Locust together. And just kind of just have them have their own separate mission, you know, just have them go on and just have their own little storyline there where, you know, essentially they just go on a crazy mission, fight, you know, a Locust big baddie, you know, maybe not Rom, but, you know, some type of new enemy that they could, you know, depict in the game. You know, it'd be really cool to see all that. And just, while this storyline would be after Emergence Day, technically, it would still be cool to have it as part of the game, even if it was just like a shorter mission, just to kind of introduce them, kind of show their initial reactions on Emergence Day, maybe even create a new beginning storyline for Baird, because we never really got to see his reaction of what happened to him on Emergence Day. So we can have that as well, like maybe have a scene where, you know, he's at home and it happens or something. The one thing that was interesting about Baird was the fact that he had a really bad relationship with his parents. He was essentially supposed to get like some type of inheritance, but because they wanted him to join the army, they essentially told him, you join the army and you get your inheritance. But he didn't want to. He wanted to be someone that, you know, created technology. He wanted to be essentially a scientist and all that. So they denied him his inheritance, but ironically, after Emergence Day, he ended up becoming a soldier anyways, and it was pretty much stated that his parents died. They never really like outright said it, I believe, but it's pretty much heavily hinted that they died. So I don't know if they died on Emergence Day or what, but that whole little thing could also be like the beginning part of Barrett's story, and then kind of have it come together with Cole's, and then just have that the mission with them together after Emergence Day and all that. But overall, in the end, I just really would like the very first game in the trilogy to be about Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Baird, and essentially showing their initial reactions on Emergence Day and going on their first missions together. You know, have parts with Marcus and Dom, and then parts with Baird and Cole, because of the fact that they do not meet each other. You know, Marcus and Dom don't meet Baird and Cole until Gears 1, so we can't really have them meeting each other in the game, unfortunately. We won't be able to have the full Delta Squad, you know, if we want the story to make sense. But we could still, at the very least, still have, you know, those characters and essentially have them go through their own adventures at the very beginning. But overall, guys, you tell me what you guys think. Would you think this is a good idea for the Gears of War franchise to be able to continue and make another trilogy by having it be a prequel trilogy, by having it go back to before Gears 1 and depict things like Emergence Day, the initial battles between the Cog and the Locust, and just so many other things that can be depicted and explained throughout this time frame? Because between Gears 1 and essentially Emergence Day, there is 14 years of storyline that could easily be depicted in a trilogy and bring so much content and bring back that grittiness that the series really needs. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video, guys. Hit that like button and subscribe, and take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching, guys.